What is up, my Squirtleites? It is I, your king, welcoming you back to more Let's Play Destiny. Today, we are about to take on one of the most interesting raids in the entirety of Destiny. But before I talk about anything in regards to this raid, Elsie has a little bit of an introduction for us.
Aramis found it. The deep stone crypt. The birthplace of the Exo. And a prison for something sinister. Her followers intend to make use of it, to unleash a chaos they do not understand. Their success needs untamed power beyond their wildest dreams. They must be stopped.
Okay, there is quite a bit to unpack there, so we're going to go over all of those things one by one. First things first, Aramis's council. I thought we killed them all, right? We killed Phylax, we killed the Technocrat, we killed everybody, didn't we? That's what we thought anyway, but actually no. If you remember, during the final mission, the mission where we put a stop to Aramis herself, there was a cutscene where she sent off one of her members of her council to go and ready some sort of weapon. That member of the council is known as Atrax, and we're going to be getting acquainted with her a little bit more later on in the episode. But for now, we need to understand why she's here, and what this place is. What is the Deep Stone Crypt exactly, and what makes it so dangerous and a place that we need to secure, as me and my fire team absolutely mess up the entire airlock room and take forever to get through it because we're a bunch of goovers. Okay, to start, we've actually heard murmurs and whispers about the Deep Stone Crypt up to this point, but the most concrete example of actually hearing about the Deep Stone Crypt came back during Forsaken. Now, unfortunately, that mission has been lost to time, and I was not able to record it for this Let's Play, but that mission where it is talked about is the Ace of Spades mission with Cade 6 back in Forsaken, where you actually recover his exotic hand cannon. In that mission, he talks about several things in regards to his past, but one of those is actually something that is ubiquitous amongst the Exos. The Exos all have a dream about returning to the place where they were born, which is the Deep Stone Crypt. In that dream, they fight against armies where they sort of make a last stand, as they are duty-bound to protect the Deep Stone Crypt at all costs. Now, this exact dream is not a reality. This is just something that all Exos think of, but it's every Exo. Banshee has this dream. Cade had this dream. Saint 13 has this dream, or 14, excuse me. They all have this dream, but they can't quite explain why it is. They just know that the Deep Stone Crypt exists. Well, the Deep Stone Crypt is in fact where all Exos were created. You see, we have the three races in Destiny, right? We got humans, we got Awoken, and then we got Exos. We know about humans because, well, it's the denizens of Earth. They're humans. That's really all there is to it. It's the same race of people that have existed on Earth for all of time as we know it, and will continue to exist for as long as the Guardians can make it so. The Awoken were created during the events of the Collapse, where darkness met light, and everything sort of collapsed in around a group of people, turning them into the Awoken. Now, most of these Awoken stayed in the Dreaming City, but some of them were sent back or decided to leave and head back to the last city, thus leaving their people behind, but essentially vowing to assist the last city in protecting it from the many threats that would constantly go against it. I guess they identified more with humanity despite their Awoken nature. And then we have Exos. Exos have existed since the Golden Age, but for a long time, they were kind of a very poorly kept secret. During the Golden Age, some of the most amazing technology one could ever conceive of was created at such a terrifyingly rapid pace that it seemed that humanity, really had no end to the discoveries that it could come up with. And the most brilliant mind amongst a whole bunch of brilliant minds during this time was none other than Clovis Bray. That's right, the father, or actually grandfather, excuse me, of both Elsie and Anna Bray. And you might say, that's a little confusing, since Anna Bray's a Guardian and Elsie's an Exo. How the heck is that their grandpa? Well, it's complicated. We're not going to get into all of that today, but you do need to know that that Clovis Bray is in fact directly related to them. Now, Clovis Bray, unfortunately, for all of his brilliance, is not a good man. He is an egotist, he is arrogant, and he truly does believe himself to be the smartest thing in the universe, which is not 100% true, but at least as far as humans go, he's not far off. In his wisdom and in his brilliance, with all of the many creations that he made with the Bray Corporation, he decided that his brilliance needed to be preserved at all costs. This, in fact, caused an immense amount of paranoia in the man, and he decided that he needed to be immortal somehow, but he wasn't about to obviously test such a thing on himself. No way, of course not. He wasn't going to put himself at risk. Instead, he created this exo program with the promise that any human, whether they be suffering from iniquities or from injury, whether they have chronic pain, whether they just want to be immortal, they should sign up for the exo program and see if they, well, can pass the exo program and be given a body that should never decay, that at the worst should only ever need repairs to keep going, but otherwise is, well, immortal. Like, as long you can, you can replace joints, you can replace circuits, but otherwise you can't die in an exo body. A fleshy but human body will eventually decay, but an exo body theoretically can last forever. So a lot of people took Clovis up on this. Many willingly, but also some unwillingly, as there were also other people that were used in this program as well. To put a long story short, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, though we don't know the exact number, died over the course of these experiments. You see, the human body doesn't really like change all that much. Human organs don't like change all that much. We already know how delicate of a process it is to transplant something like a kidney. You have to be pretty exact. You need a matching blood type, and sometimes that's not even enough because there are all these different factors that can cause organs to reject one another, and in most cases, if that happens, it's fatal. The brain, above all other organs, is far and away the most fickle and the most complex in humans. There is a very good reason why we have not been able to figure out how to transplant brains, and even in the most extreme of cases, we have only been able to keep transplanted brains in other species alive for a handful of minutes. So how the heck is that going to work in a human? You pull out the brain and you stick it in a robot. Is that going to just work? Of course not. Of course it's not that simple. You see, exobodies, well, the brains themselves, rejected these exobodies constantly in almost every single case, and there was a lot of kinks to iron out because of that. Now, at first, this just resulted in the deaths of tons and tons of program applicants, but eventually there were some fixes that were found out. The big one, the biggest band-aid of all, was memory wipes. You see, the brain can't have an attachment to a body it doesn't know about. It can't technically know that it's supposed to be somewhere else if it doesn't have any way of remembering that it belongs somewhere else. So, yeah, it makes a lot of sense in theory to just completely wipe the memory over and over until the brain goes, wait a minute, maybe this body really was my body all along, and then it stops rejecting it. This is why, if you ever see an exo, they have a number, a hyphenated number next to their name. Think K6, Saint 14, Banshee 44. That number indicates the number of memory wipes that exo has undergone to, well, get to where they are now. Now, that the number of memory wipes doesn't always 100% correlate to just the brain rejecting the body. Sometimes it can also just be because that exo is dying in some other way. They needed to reset for another reason. They maybe had a mistake happen in their life and they need to correct that mistake. There's a whole lot of different reasons as to why those memory wipes can happen, but in almost every case with exos, the memory wipes that needed to happen until the technology was perfected. Now, they got really darn close, extremely close before the collapse happened, but they didn't quite get there. And because of that, Clovis himself was not able to fully enact what he wanted to enact and get himself in his own permanent exo body. I mean, he did, but it wasn't exactly the way he planned it. So he had to essentially upload his consciousness somewhere else and seal it away in the meantime. Now, we know where his brain is at. It is actually deep in the bowels of Europa, but is not here on the Deepstone Crypt. No. That would be suicidal. In fact, he would never do that. No, instead, he decided to upload it to something resembling an exo, but is more of just a giant construct, with the hope that someday he would eventually be able to put his mind in a functioning exo body, of course. Because, you know, like I said, he wants to maintain that immortality. But all of the technology required to make the exos a reality is here in the Deepstone Crypt, and that doesn't just amount to creating robot bodies that are able to do what humans do. There's so much more to it than that. To understand this sort of technology, you need to be running so many different tests under so many different permutations and creating so much technology to make it all work that there's a lot more going on in this crypt than, again, just exos being born and being created. There is biohacking technology. There is mechanics that can be grafted onto living things, and we all know that the Elixni love that as a concept. They are big fans of it. And, we saw this back in the Rise of Iron campaign with Siva and whatnot. Fall in love when they can take technology and kind of merge it with their own bodies. And obviously, Aramis's Fallen are no exception. In fact, they see this as a way of ascending to a higher plane, of becoming something greater than themselves. This is why they worship machines the way that they do. Well, that and also because of their long-standing worship of the Traveler, hence why servitors exist. And this is also going to apply to this lady right here on the left, okay? Lady on the left is the member of Aramis's council. That is Atrax. The one on the right, however... Do you recognize him? Yeah, he's pissed to see us. Can you guess why? It's because we've already killed him before. That's Tannix, everybody. That's the very same Tannix that we killed back in Destiny 1, and also the Nightmare of in Shadowkeep. And you might be going, well, how is he alive? Well, Tannix kind of cheats. See, Tannix, as has been said before, is like 10% Elixni and 90% machine. And when you're that many parts machine, well, it's not really hard to bring back to life the other 10%. So, yeah. He has been stored away here in the crypt, waiting a moment where he can come back, and, well, Atrax is helping him for a very good reason, because with Tannix's biohacking know-how, that suddenly makes the technology here in the crypt a lot more dangerous. But to get to Tannix, we're going to need to get through Atrax first. And I'm actually going to explain this encounter because this is probably the most memorable encounter in all of this raid. Atrax herself also has a lot of interesting technology. One of those tech is cloning technology. Now, throughout this raid, throughout the Deepstone Crypt, there are a few different augments that players can pick up. The two that are important to this encounter are Scanner and Operator. Scanner allows you to see things that you could not otherwise see, and Operator allows you to activate things you could not otherwise activate. Very simple. To start this, there is an upper area and a lower area. There are 4 elevators that are down here at the bottom, and to get up top, 3 people need to take elevators all the way up to get up there and start killing enemies at the top. The 4th person is actually going to stay down with us for a little while until they get a hold of the Operator fragment, which augment, which spawns down there. The Scanner one spawns up here at the top. Once the Operator person goes up, they get all the way to the top, and then they send all of the rest of the other elevators down so that the 2 bottom people can come up when needed. Now comes the rest of the fight. Once we are all up here, we are going to want to coordinate because we want to make sure that all of the servitors are dead at the time when we are all ready to do damage. We already killed all the servitors down below, but now we have the servitors up top. Once the last servitor dies, Extinction Protocol begins, and this is where Atrax needs to be dealt damage to, but we have a very short window to do so. The Scanner will call out which Atrax is the correct one. We dump all of the damage into Atrax, and after that is done, we got to run back downstairs with the Scanner in hand because we need to figure out which Atrax now down below can be damageable. This is going to be shifting constantly up, down, until the damage phase is over. For this second part, we will only send down 3. Me, one other person, and then our Scanner, and then they are going to tell us which clone is it. Now, there are less clones to worry about down here, but you still got to be fast, because after you have taken down that version of Atrax, they are going to drop something that is also important to the encounter. It's this little sparkly ball that kind of sits on the ground. You got to pick that up, because that is essentially a nuke that will blow everybody up in the entire encounter if not properly taken care of. To get rid of those, the Operator, who then went up top, is going to be opening doors all throughout this upper area because we are in space right now, and these doors are essentially airlocks. What they do is you have to send the person with the bomb into the airlock. They have to discard the nuke into the airlock, and then once that is done, that nuke will eventually be sucked out into space, but you got to time it just right so that the person dropping the nuke doesn't get sucked out with the nuke. It's a little bit of a complex scenario, but they've kind of got their own thing going on. Generally, we try to leave 3 people on nuke duty. We try to have the Scanner, and then we have the 2 people that are focused on damage at all times, which is myself and Phantomagorian here, babysitting our Scanner. So, we should be able to get the last of the damage here. Like I said, this is a very short... Wow, we still didn't get it. I can't believe it. That's actually probably a good thing, though, because then I think we can show an entire other phase here. So this is going to be me picking up the replication, which is essentially that nuke that I was talking about. So back up top we go. And then once that is done, we are going to have to come back here and actually show a second phase. I think that's why I included this clip in particular. Yeah, it's because I wanted to show this phase, this entire thing being done twice. This is actually a tremendous failure. It is very easy to do that all in one phase, but if you don't, well, you get to see what happens. So this is going to be me running towards the airlock so I can properly demonstrate what happens when you do that. So you'll go in here, and right before you want to turn around, get that shot off, make sure you don't accidentally pick it up again on your way out. They will close the airlock, and then it will get sucked out into space. Okay, pretty good example of everything that goes on there. Now, I am going to have to head back down in a second, enter the launch pod, and we're going to have to go kill servitors all over again, and then the next phase begins. At the third phase is when the white mechanic will take place, so if you somehow haven't killed Atrax by that point, you're done for. But it is so easy to do so that honestly the fact that we even made it to a second phase is kind of shameful, but I'm sure there was some things that went on that caused that, prevented that from happening. Some deaths where people lost their stacks on certain weapons and whatnot. All in all, it's a tremendous failure, but it's a very good failure that I am happy to show here because it allows me to demonstrate all of the mechanics of this encounter. So we're going to do the same thing, kill all the servitors again, and then we're going to head up and deal with it. This time, though, we can leave our operator up top, so really just the two of us can deal with everything until they have sent all the elevators down. It's just servitor killing duty for us down here, and then we will go up to coordinate to kill the last servitor all at the same time, do the damage. But once we get Atrax to that final threshold, that's when things are going to get a little bit more crazy. So obviously we are just a sliver of damage away, so anything we do is going to be more than enough damage. This is where you would generally tell your team, don't use your heavy. Do not use those. You want to save those for final stand. We do not need that kind of damage. So this is probably where I'm going to use like a fusion rifle or whatnot just to kind of take it out. So kill that. And now Extinction Protocol is activated. Scanner's going to call it out. I do believe... Oh, yep, right here. So we're all in the same spot. So do as much damage as you can, as quickly as you can, and there you go. All right, so now we're in final stand. Now a whole lot more clones are going to spawn all over this upper room. And now we got one shot to do as much damage as possible to Atrax and kill her basically before she wipes this entire room. So we're just going to have to deal with it for a minute. She has not started Extinction Protocol yet. Now she has. Here we go. Scanner is going to call it out to tell us which one. And there's ways to coordinate this, but generally our scanner just goes this fucker right here, and then we all run at them. So shoot at the same time. I blew myself up, but it doesn't matter because we win. And there we go. Atrax has been defeated.
Status. Pathway to nuclear core is obscured. You have no warnings left.
I love the AI taunting you throughout this entire raid. Now, that is going to probably be the last of the encounters that I am going to explain in detail. But before we end this first part, I want to treat you guys to something special. You see, in most raids, encounters tend to be the most memorable parts of all of them. And I'm not saying that there aren't memorable encounters in this raid. In fact, Atrax is a very good example. A lot of people remember that encounter for a multitude of reasons. Back when the raid first came out, it was by far the most difficult encounter and the most interesting encounter, and still holds up very well to this day. The next encounter actually is my favorite of them all, and is an also very much beloved encounter. There's great stuff, but something that I cannot say about any other raid in Destiny is the most memorable part being a platforming section. And I'm not saying that this is a particularly great platforming section mechanically or anything. It's just memorable. And the reason why is the soundtrack. Michael Salvatore, Sky Lewin, and everybody else that is related some way to this game's soundtrack does incredible work, guys. Like you would not believe. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shut up for a minute, and I'm going to let you guys just experience this for yourself. And have a listen to the Deep Stone Lullaby.
This facility is not simply the fruitless work of some pathetic scientist.
Now, I apologize for the sloppy gameplay, kinda, but I also wanted to pick gameplay that was specifically slow and methodical enough that you guys could hear that entire song. Deep Stone Lullaby is one of the most iconic pieces of music in Destiny's history for that very reason. The astoundment that we all felt when we first entered the spacewalk to hear that song in the background was incredible. It really is truly one of the most memorable moments in Destiny's history, and I thought I'd share at least a small piece of that with you today. Now, in the next episode, we will be continuing through the crypt and going into my favorite encounter in the entire raid, as well as dealing with the final boss in this raid. So I hope you're all looking forward to that. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all then.